Hi everyone, it's Holly and welcome to another Tuesday Talks video, and this week's topic is should there be viewer discretion on books? And so I feel like this kind of falls into I'm going to make it fall into two different categories. So maybe like an age rating, like I know like little kids books will say like for grades blah blah blah, but that's more of like a reading comprehension level than a content thing. So, but more of like a rating like you have for movies or even TV shows, and then having warnings like trigger warnings. So first, for the ratings, in general, I don't think books should have that. I think reading is a very individual thing. I think if you're younger, like if you're a tween or a teenager, tweens were not called tweens when I was a tween, so that's still weird for me to say. It was preteen, but I don't understand why we need a new word, but you know, if you're like between like 12 and 17, I guess, because for some reason we just arbitrarily agree on the fact that 18 is the year where like sexual content is okay. Like for some reason that birthday changes things, and I think that's kind of ridiculous. But I don't think books have to have any viewer discretion. I know Colleen Hoover in the last few months had gotten some like emails about ugly love and it not being appropriate, and because it's pretty sexual and it's kind of vulgar, and so she did like what age groups she would consider appropriate for all of her books, which I think is nice. But like I was saying before, I think it's very individual, and I think if you're younger and so you're still like under parental supervision, your parents could choose different things. So my dad never really cared what any of us kids read. I read my first romance novel when I was like 14. I feel like that was kind of old. Like I hear so many stories from romance readers who started when they were like 10 or 12, and like depending on your relationship with your child and everything, if you know what your kid is reading, I feel like that is fine. And in general, I feel like content is pretty obvious. Like, hold on, do I have a romance novel? I mean, if I saw a like 10-year-old reading, like if I had a 10-year-old and they were picking this up, I mean, most likely they would have gotten it off my bookshelf, so who am I kidding? But I know what this book is. Like, it's not hard to figure it out. If you pick up a book in the YA section, I feel like that's sort of an agreement that it's an appropriate book for a young adult. Now granted, young adult is a huge genre filled with so much different content. I know Graceling has some sexual content. It's off the page, but for the most part, but it's sexual content, and I know that kind of surprised some people because at the time that wasn't very common. So I can understand why people would want viewer discretion, but I don't necessarily think it's needed. As for trigger warnings, I wish that was a thing. Personally, I don't really have any triggers. Like, nothing, you know, sends me into like a panic or puts me back in a difficult situation, but I can understand that people do suffer. I try to point out trigger warnings when I can, but I get it. Especially rape, I feel like, is a hot button one, and a lot of times it's not clear in the like synopsis of your book that that's happening. And I do wish that there was an easier way to explain trigger warnings. So especially for the big ones like rape and self-harm and suicide, which I guess is part of self-harm. You know, those kinds of things. I'm sure some people it's hard to read PTSD stories because if that's something that they've struggled with or somebody in their family has struggled with. But I do wish that we had like this collection, this database. They've been talking about this on the DVSA podcast, of like a website you could go to and know that books have trigger warnings, because sometimes people put it in reviews, but I know I personally don't read reviews usually unless I've read the book, just in case I stumble upon a spoiler. So it's like this so hard thing to find out, and I do wish we had that. I really, really, really do. Yes, so those are my thoughts on viewer discretion. If you have any comments or questions, let me know down in the comments, obviously. Or if you want to check out the Goodreads group or participate, I will link the Goodreads group in the description as well. I'm really curious to see what people have to say. I feel like people might feel differently about the whole like should there be age warnings thing depending on if you have kids or not. And maybe if I had kids, I would look at it differently. Like, I'm curious if in 10 to 15 years, which I would hope I have kids by that point, if I would feel differently. Like right now, looking on it, I really don't care what my kids are reading as long as I'm like, I know what they're reading and I'm controlling it or whatever. That could obviously change, so who knows. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.